Have you ever felt like there's a vivid fire burning inside of you, yearning to break free and illuminate your life? That, my friend, is your vibrant life waiting to bloom. Welcome to the Vibrant Life Podcast. We are here to empower women just like you to liberate that vibrant life, to live authentically, and to harness the power within.
Our journey will take us through the enlightening realms of energy healing, goal setting, spiritual awakening, and so much more. We're stepping into the light of self-acceptance, of owning our power and potential.
If you have been yearning to dive headfirst into the world of entrepreneurship, or awaken your spirituality, or simply make peace with yourself, your search ends here at the Vibrant Life Podcast. As we embark on this enlightening journey together, we promise to hold your hand through every step of your journey to a more vibrant life.
Your adventure to true empowerment and authentic living begins here. Tap into the vibrant life you've always dreamed of. Subscribe now and join us at the Vibrant Life Podcast. Embrace your vibrant self. Until then, shine on.
Shine on.
Well, welcome to the Vibrant Life Podcast. I'm Cassi. I am the founder of the Vibrant Life Society, as well as a productivity coach and project manager by trade. And this is my co-host, Audrey.
Hi, I am a nurse by trade and newly into spiritual coaching. And what else can I add for my intro?
Well, I wouldn't say newly. I mean, you've been doing it for 4 years.
Yeah. So I am Audrey. I am a nurse by trade, and this is a struggle. I'm a nurse by trade. I can't talk about myself. This has to do with the self-limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
How do I introduce myself in a way that is empowering to myself, feeling like I'm worth it? So I think part of this is actually going to stay in the podcast because I'm like, wait a second here. We're getting somewhere. So how do I introduce myself? I'm a nurse. I have been on a spiritual awakened journey for the last 4 years, and I am feeling called and inspired to help other people do the same. So that is how I found Cassi, and that is how we got here, and that's how we got started, because I felt like the journey that I have been on is I'm being called to teach about the journey, because I know that there are a lot of other people that are going through similar experiences and they wanted to help.
Right. And that's why I founded Vibrant Life Society, because I was feeling like I was learning so much about myself, and kind of the same time around the start of the pandemic. And I just didn't know how I wanted to reach out to people and connect with people, but I know I needed to. And so I had this idea, and then we talked about it, but you weren't involved in it yet. And then, we have kind of these crisscrossing paths, I would say. Like we're on our own individual journeys, but we've kind of shared things back and forth over the years. And then it just happened a couple months ago where I was like, yes, we need to do this together. We have the same overall arching goal of empowering women, helping women. And we've done that in our own ways, but now we're doing it together.
Which is pretty incredible.
That's the Vibrant Life Podcast.
That's how it came to be. I also think we should share how we even met. We
met through daycare.
It was incredible. We had all these moms at daycare. We have this really awesome daycare provider who is super spiritual in her own way as well. And we just had this call for women to be together. And so we decided to start a moms group through our daycare. All of these moms came together, and we have mom nights where we can get together in a judgment-free zone, and we can just talk about all the things that are happening in life. And so that is how we came to know each other.
Yeah.
And then that's what we were doing in January. We got together to have our Christmas get together, and we were doing some tarot and oracle card readings. And it came to light that I am a teacher. I need to teach. And Cassi had this amazing idea for a business, and she needed a partner.
So here we are.
Here we are. And today we're going to talk about self-limiting beliefs.
Yeah. And we've tapped into a couple already.
Right.
How do you introduce yourself? And I think that comes back to feeling like you're allowed to have a voice. Mm-hmm. You're allowed to be heard. You're allowed to take up space. And I think I know that's a limiting belief that I have had to work through. Absolutely. Of like always making myself smaller, being afraid to use my voice, being afraid to take up space in a room, and then talking about myself with love and with pride, because it's always the struggle that we got to work through. So we talked about one kind of before we started recording, but that's not good enough.
Yeah.
And that's the biggie.
And that's the big one that I feel like everyone has. I think it's a societal thing as a little girl. And I think it's more women than men, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Women are taught that they are not good enough, that they don't have, we know that you don't have an equal voice. We know.
Right.
Look at all the things that go down as far as like equal pay and
right.
the job markets, like all the things. Women have just been able to vote for however many years. We know it's a thing that society has taught us. We are not good enough.
Yes. So this actually reminded me of a few years ago. I was putting a resume together and I was working with this awesome career coach named Lori. She's a good friend of mine. She lives out in Seattle. And I had all of these different skills and I was like, I don't know how to put these together in a way, but she helped me do that and helped me double my income. She's amazing. But what I was getting at is during my job search, she was like, find some job descriptions that feel exciting to you. And I would bring them to her and be like, this is kind of what I'm looking for. This is where I think I could grow and be good. And she rattled off this stat that men will apply for a job meeting 60% of the requirements. And women feel like they have to meet all of them. And I think that goes back to not ever feeling good enough. We feel like we have to overachieve the requirements before we even put our name in the ring, before we even step forward. And that's a limiting belief that I think a lot of us have. And it manifests in so many different ways.
So many different ways. Whatever energy you put out there is what you bring back in. And so that is definitely something I've spent the last 4 years working on, is making sure what I'm putting out there is what I want to bring back in. And so that self-worth, that feeling like I have to work at the hospital like a slave, I have to work these 13, 14-hour shifts and not be appreciated, felt like that was the job. That was all I could do as a nurse, was to be treated in a way that it's just not great. It's toxic. You have to do this. You can't take breaks. If you're sick, you're penalized. If your kids are sick, you're penalized. So I think it comes back to that, figuring out that I was worth more than that and knowing that I was worth more than that and standing up and saying I wasn't going to do it any longer.
Yeah.
Was huge for me.
And when you say you're worth more than that, that can mean compensation wise. Mm-hmm. I know when I set my first big money goal, I had to work through the belief that it's okay to want money. That was my baby step of, I have these big goals and these big dreams and I want to have abundance in all areas of my life. And that includes financially. But I felt like I wasn't allowed to say, I want this, you know? So that was kind of one of those limiting beliefs, is digging in to that and saying, you know, where did this come from? And then how to rewrite that. And we'll get into that a little bit more in the podcast. But going back to your worth of, you know, you can mean that financially, you can mean your time, you can mean your self-care, you can mean you're just worth more in all aspects. But I think it can mean different things in different situations.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
So you identified one of, I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy of this. And you kind of flipped it around in your story of, I am worth more than that. And that's overcoming that limiting belief. But it started out feeling like you had to accept certain things. So how did you, one, identify that limiting belief? And then how do you rewrite that narrative?
It's a super long journey. I think the hospital, I was working there and I had been asked to apply for this supervisor role, and I had applied for a lot of supervisor roles, a lot of them. And it came down to a manager had reached out and said, I really think you're the right fit for this job. And I was like, okay, one last time, I'm going to apply for the supervisor role and this is what I'm going to do. And I waited 2 weeks and I didn't hear anything back. And I finally chased her down. I was like, what is happening with this? And she goes, a little tearfully, she was like, I am sorry, we are not offering you this job. And I was like, excuse me? What do you mean? You asked me.
Right.
Because I came in here with some initiative and told you some things that needed fixed. What do you mean? I'm not going to be offered the job. And I needed to hit rock bottom. That was the point where I was like, okay, now I can build from here. And in that moment, I knew that I did not deserve to be treated like that. So it was kind of a long process to realize I didn't need to be treated like that. It kind of was a trickle effect of me identifying other things in my life that I also was not worth to be treated in that manner, and that I deserve to be treated with the best respect, because that's how I treat people.
Right.
And so I deserve to get that back. So then it started there. Okay, so then what was the next question? So I identified it when I hit rock bottom. And then I figured out a plan. I left my job. And then moving on from there, I ended up in another job that also treated me in a way that wasn't a good fit.
Right.
And I knew I deserved to be surrounded by way better than that. And so then by that point, I had actually found manifestation, and I'd been working on that for quite a while. And so I wrote down what I wanted the universe to bring me. And this is my feel-good story. I wanted to be surrounded by empowering women. I wanted to really help the community, and I wanted to always put my family first. I did put down that money component too, that I didn't want to be making any less than I was making at that moment. I think I might have aimed for a little higher. I didn't get a little higher, but I got those 4 things in a job that suits me very well. And so I said those were the things I wanted to feel, and that's what I brought in.
Right. So let's break that down. I had so many thoughts while you were saying that, but I think a few of the takeaways. First of all, you had to hit rock bottom. You don't always have to.
You don't
when
always have to.
You're identifying a limiting belief. I had a very similar experience in my marriage, though, where it was like it had to get real bad before I was like, wait, nope, this is my limit. I deserve better than this, and claiming that. Yeah. But you can claim them without blowing up your life.
Yes,
you can. That is doable. So it starts with a moment of recognizing it and then starting to rewrite that narrative. But that it's not always a linear from point A to point B. So you had your job that you kind of went over here and said, maybe this will fix it, but it wasn't what you wanted. And so you came over here. And along that journey, you were rewriting and identifying these limiting beliefs and saying, no, I believe better. I want to attract this. And you can't jump from point A to where you are now. You have to do that work, because if you would have gotten this job that you're in now, you wouldn't have been ready for it. You maybe wouldn't have thought that you deserved it. And so that can manifest in self-sabotaging.
Yes.
That can manifest in not recognizing the things that you want or the way you want to feel. But I think self-sabotaging is the biggest. And I know that's how it comes out for me. Yeah. If I am reaching for something, or I'm going for something, or I'm offered an opportunity and I let my limiting beliefs take over, I self-sabotage. That's how that comes out for me.
Would go into an example of what your self-sabotage looks like.
Oh,
because I'm sure other people do it too, and maybe don't even realize that they're doing that.
Oh, for sure. So mine would be, I procrastinate a lot. I put things away out of fear, and then I let the opportunity slide, and then I go into this whole spiral, and it's just bad. It can be reversed, because now I know I've identified the root. So if I'm procrastinating, I can say, wait, I know why I'm doing this. And it's because I'm feeling unworthy of whatever I'm chasing, or I have some other limiting belief around that. So then sometimes I will either journal about it, or I'll just do a meditation. I really like guided meditations for those. And then I can work through that, and I can identify how I want to rewrite that narrative. So once I've identified that belief, so whether that's unworthy, I'm not equipped, I don't have the skills, I can write that out in a journal. So I can be like, I have the skills that I need, and I can choose the narrative that I want to insert in my life. And then when that belief does come up, or that thought pops in, I sometimes imagine closing the door on it.
Love it.
Or you can like kick it out of your head, or imagine crumpling it up and throwing it away. And then you bring in what you want to believe. And that has to happen in practice. It's not just like a one-time thing.
No.
It's not like,
it's a
I've identified this limiting belief, so now I believe this other thing.
Right.
It's an ongoing thing. And you have to identify what the belief is, how that manifests in your life. So for me, it might be, I'm not capable of doing the task that I have before me that I know would take me to that next step. And then I know that manifests in me procrastinating. So my house is spotless, but the thing I need to get done is not done. And then I can stop myself and say, okay, I know how to rewrite that. Yeah. And that is just an ongoing thing.
It's a process. How many years did it take you to come up with the limiting belief that you're not worth something?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's an entire lifetime. So how do you rewrite it? So another thing to be used is positive affirmations. And I think what you said about crumpling it up, closing the door, throwing it away, whatever you need to do. For me, I also need to remember the piece of I acknowledge the thought, and then I forgive myself for it. Ooh. Because that is a big, huge piece, is that there's guilt attached to it as well.
Right.
And so when you forgive something and you really are just like, all you have to do is say, I forgive that. let it go, and then you're done with it. And then insert positive affirmation here.
Right.
And so then it's one thought process at a time. So you can write it on your mirror in your bathroom. So when you're getting ready in the morning, you say, I'm worthy. In fact, I like to use that in passwords, things that I want to say to myself. So I say it over and over and over again. I write out a sentence with, of course, lots of numbers and, exclamation points.
Don't be hacking into your things.
Don't be hacking into any of my accounts. But I use that so that way I can remind myself over and over and over again that I am worthy. I am a teacher. I am a healer. I am beautiful. That's another thing I feel like growing up as a child.
Ooh, yeah. That's another one that I feel like we hear a lot. I actually have my folders on my phone listed out by an affirmation. So it's like, I am growing, and that's all my personal development. I am wealthy. That's where I keep all my banking stuff. Just because I want to have that energy when I go into my bank account. Whatever the number is in there, I want it to be, I am coming from a place of abundance and wealth.
Absolutely.
So that's just one way that I use affirmations, and we can have a whole nother podcast on how we use affirmations.
Absolutely. Check out the website because Cassie's got some affirmations there that you guys can just take on up and use in your own life.
So if you're new to affirmations, go to vibrantlifesociety.com, and there's a free affirmations guide on there that you can download. And those are honestly the ones that I started out with because I needed a piece of paper to tell me. Couldn't come up with them on my own. And that's okay.
That's okay.
There's resources out there, use them. Mm-hmm. So limiting beliefs come in a lot of different voices in our heads, but they are ingrained in us or adopted either through society influences, past failures, or childhood experiences. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where they come from. So if you're trying to identify, where did I get this narrative? Those are kind of the categories that you can sift through of your own life.
I would like to point out that you just mentioned that looking to find where things come from is called shadow work. And it is looking deep back into your past and trying to figure out what these things are. And that's a whole nother episode in itself. But it's also okay to not know where things come from and to release it anyways. It'll come up again because the work is never done. We're just constantly learning and growing as individuals. In fact, if you think you know all the things there are to know in this life, then at one point I can just tell you you're in for a rude awakening. One day it's just going to hit you in the face that is not the purpose of this life. The purpose is to continue to grow as a human and to experience life on deep levels. And so when you experience those emotions, it just taps you into this whole other side that can make you so much more free as a person.
And I think it's important to embrace that with the attitude of curiosity. So I did a lot of that soul searching in the aftermath of my divorce and trying to figure out who I wanted to be as a mom and who I wasn't as an adult by myself because I had never been an adult, not being with my ex. But approaching that through curiosity. So having a question like, how did I get myself into this situation? Or why did I think this? Or how did I approach it that way? But looking back with compassion and love. And saying, oh, this is where that root was, and I did the best with what I had at the time. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to your forgiveness piece of, I have this limiting belief because of these experiences, and I just need to forgive past Cassi, past Audrey, for taking this belief out of that situation and bringing it forward and then releasing that because you don't want to take it forward with you anymore.
You don't want to take it forward. Another thing that I've done before too is I had a lot of trauma come out of that job. So I wrote down all the things that I needed to think of, all the things that caused the hurt that had happened. I wrote it down, I burned the paper, and then I put them in a little pink bubble and I blew them away. Oh. And then I felt like I was able to let go of more of that when I did that.
The residual emotions, I have been doing this therapy called Body Talk. And that's really helped me kind of release that. And so I go to this lady named Fonda. Love her. But I went in to her and I was like, I have done all the things and I still have this anger and I'm done with it. I'm ready to let go of it. I was like, I have screamed at the world. I have written things on paper and burned them. I have done the talk therapy. And within 3 sessions, it was gone. And that was amazing. But I still go back to her 3 years later because things come up. It comes back around. It's not like I set this anger aside. It's I'm good for a while, and then it comes back because you're constantly doing the shadow work that you talked about, and you're constantly learning and evolving, and new beliefs come up that we have to tackle. There isn't just one limiting belief that you're going to identify as you're doing this work. You're going to have all kinds, and they're going to pop up out of nowhere.
And this is a good time to plug in that everything that happens in life is actually circular and not linear. So if you think there's like different seasons, this takes us back to the seasons. There's different seasons of life. So if you're just plugged into one certain season, you might have the same thing pop up from 20 years ago that you thought that you had let it all the way go, and then you've grown as a person, and there's a deeper level of understanding that can come now, and so it comes up to the surface again, and you're like, okay, I see you, what can I learn from you this time? And then you work through it, and then you let it go again.
Yes. All right, so let's reiterate some of our action steps on limiting beliefs. So limiting beliefs can be derived from childhood experiences, societal influences, and past failures. We find journaling really helpful. Looking through your past with a sense of curiosity and compassion is a big one. And then choosing the affirmation or the narrative that you want to rewrite that limiting belief with. And I think I skipped identifying how it's manifesting, how it's impacting your life today, because that's going to trigger you to say, oh, I need to rewrite this. This is something that maybe even subconsciously is coming up. I need to stop and take a minute and rework the track that's playing in my head.
And then throw in that piece of forgiveness as well.
Yeah.
That you're human and you're only doing the best you can with the information you have. So you can't do better until you know better. And that part is super, super important. So wherever all of you are on your journeys, I want you to take that piece of advice away with you. If that's the only thing you hear today.
Yeah.
I think that's so huge that you're all doing the best that you can. And we see you for that.
Right. And you're here and curious about it. And that's a really big step. I mean, that's where it starts, just with curiosity.
Absolutely.
And identifying that you want more, or you want better, or you want something different than you have today. And whether you find that here or somewhere else, we wish you the best in that. And if you would like some affirmations, you can find our affirmations guide at vibrantlifesociety.com.
I think that sounds like that's a wrap for today.
I think so.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Vibrant Life podcast. We hope today's episode has energized and inspired you to live your best life. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so as to never miss an episode. And please take a moment to leave us a review. Your feedback fuels our mission to bring you more valuable content. Remember, your journey to vibrant life is ongoing. Stay connected with us on social media at Vibrant Life Society for daily tips, motivation, and community support. As we wrap up today's conversation, we encourage you to embrace each moment, pursue your passions, and prioritize your well-being. Together, let's create a life that radiates with energy and purpose. Until next time, live vibrantly. See you in our next episode.